Shana Tova. Housekeeping. A couple days ago, the list of Nobel Prize winners came out. There were 2 winners in physics, 2 in chemistry, 2 in medicine, and 1 in literature. So of the 7 individuals who won Nobel Prizes this year, 1 is Jewish. Kind of proud, right? Gary Ruvkin won in medicine for, I have to read this verbatim, for the discovery of mitochondrial RNA and its role in post-transcriptional gene regulation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds really brainy, right? Like, that's some smart stuff. And Mr. Ruvkin's win means that 1/7 of the Nobel Prize winners this year are Jewish. It's like 15%. And frankly, that's not even all that impressive, because if you look at the history of the Nobel Prize, they've been giving it out since 1901. And since 1901, 22% of all Nobel Prizes have been awarded to Jews. Yeah, that's more than a figure. Are you clapping? Yeah, sure, why not? Go us. That means that more than 1/5 of all Nobel laureates are members of the tribe. Now that is pretty impressive, especially when you consider the fact that Jews make up 0.2% of the world population. Not 2%, by the way, of the world population, 0.2% of everyone in the world is a Jew. There's not a lot of us, but we are contributing. You know, Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr and Ada Yonath are just a few of the many Jewish men and women who have won Nobel Prizes, whose contributions to science have impacted the world. Billions of people have benefited from our tiny, brainy bunch. We should feel pretty good about that. Because again, it's not like there's a lot of us. Re-rack. Relative to the other populations of world religions, there's actually very few of us. So I think it's kind of neat that we Jews do so much for society. And in so many different areas. It's not just science and math, of course. It's music, it's art, it's sport. Well, it's not sports, except for a few of us. But everything else, we really show up. You know, we more than contribute our share to the greater non-Jewish world. So why do so many people despise us? You know, we don't proselytize. We're happy to work on their holidays. And like I already pointed out, we've done a lot for the world. So why do so many people hate us? And wow, there is a lot of hate for us in the world. I said it on Rosh Hashanah, and I'll say it again now. There has been a 360% increase in anti-Semitic incidents in the United States since October 7th. 360%. That's an increase in thousands of incidents of harassment and intimidation, assault. Our workplaces, our schools, our campuses are less safe. We are less safe now, not just in Israel, but everywhere. The UK, Europe, right here in America. According to the FBI, the religion that has the most hate crimes perpetrated against it is Judaism. And that's before October 7th and after, many years running before. The terrorist attacks by Hamas on October 7th, all the way in Israel, followed by Israel's defense of herself and the recovery efforts, they just gave anti-Semites permission to operate openly. And that has been a hard truth for so many of us to reckon with since that fateful day, since the anti-Semitism of so much of the world was laid bare before our eyes, since the reaction of so many people to the slaughter of 1,200, the vast majority Jewish, and the abduction of hundreds. That reaction moved in light speed from shock to blame. And the onslaught of, but what about, began. Yes, dozens of Jewish children were murdered, but what about? Yes, whole families may have been burned alive in their homes, but what about? Yes, countless women were raped, but what about? And hearing that, encountering that, is an additional layer of pain for us. I've heard about this deep pain from so many of you. Having to navigate conversations with your friends, with loved ones sometimes, who, if the conversation even turns to October 7th, you haven't been offered words of consolation or even curiosity. But instead, you are placed in a defensive position. Yeah, but how do you explain? We were not allowed to mourn our dead before we had to justify our lives. And it makes you wonder how much some of them even liked us in the first place. Because you see, the hatred of anti-Semites, it's always existed. Anti-Semitism has always existed. It wasn't defeated when Nazi Germany, surrendered in 1945. Come on. It doesn't go away. It just goes quiet. It's not polite to say that kind of stuff. Until the world gives itself permission again to hate Jews openly. And make no mistake, it is about Judaism. The justification of, it's not Judaism, it's Zionism. I'm against Zionism, I'm anti-Zionist is the problem. That doesn't pan out. That excuse doesn't work. Because then why vandalize the homes of Jewish journalists? Because it frees Palestine? Did banning Hillel do the trick? Setting fire to Jewish museums? Does verbally and physically assaulting Jews just go into shul? Did it work? Did they free Palestine? Huh. But that's what they do. No, for those who hate us, that is the secret. It was not actually about Palestine at all, and it never was. They don't actually care about Palestinians. It's about Jews, and it always has been. There's a reason the Haggadah we read on Pesach says, B'chol dor v'dor omdim, in every generation they come after us. Anti-Semitism is a perennial favorite. And it doesn't matter what we say, how we explain, how we plead. It's never good enough for our haters. To those who hate us, there is no good Jew. Constructive dialogue is a thing that exists, and it's a beautiful thing, but a conversation with someone who fundamentally hates you is not possible. You cannot respectfully disagree with a person who fundamentally hates you because they don't acknowledge your basic humanity. For the anti-Semitic in the world, any wrong committed against a Jew is always kind of justifiable. Because if a person has no humanity, they don't merit human rights. They don't merit dignity or respect. And that's how a Jewish business in Los Angeles can be set ablaze. A day school in Toronto can be firebombed. A Jewish teen girl in Paris can be sexually assaulted. And it's all perfectly reasonable if the supposed victim is fundamentally guilty of a collective sin, and thus they are inherently bad. And every Jew, to the anti-Semite, is guilty of being a Jew. Right now we live in a world where it feels like the brakes are off and the hate train is barreling full speed, so it looks pretty dire right now. This is the number one concern I hear from you, from my congregants, that anti-Semitism is increasing, hatred and violence against Jews is increasing at home, abroad, on our college campuses, in our places of worship, online, in our own backyards. It looks bleak. And when you look at history, you look at the long, long history of people hating us and hurting us, it looks even more bleak. Azma, the rabbis would say, and so. I gave a sermon a few years ago when times were simpler, back when Kanye West was the biggest name in anti-Semitism. You laugh. I'm not saying I want a do-over. I don't want a do-over of that sermon, but I think I did leave a very big question unanswered in that sermon. Because In it, I said, and I do still hold this 100% to be true, that anti-Semitism, it's not our problem. It's not any of our problem. Anti-Semitism is a non-Jewish problem. The same way homophobia is a straight problem and anti-black racism is a problem for people who are not black to solve. Similarly, anti-Semitism is a sickness that's only possible in some non-Jewish people, and so, I said in that sermon, it's up to non-Jews to solve it. We are not to blame for crimes that are committed against us. But I left a big question unanswered. And it's something that I have bumped up against repeatedly and painfully so since October 7th and the avalanche of anti-Jewish hatred that followed it. Because clearly, we cannot make others see our humanity. There is no demonstrating our worth to those who feel we are inherently worthless. No proving our right to live to those who see it as an imposition on their lives. So what do? What can all of us do? Every single one of us, what can we do? Wait? Wait while the protesters scream at us, while the college professors harass us, while the online trolls threaten us? What do we do if we can't convince them? What do we do because we can't convince them to treat us like human beings? I think that's the question. And I think we're actually just left with one answer that applies to everyone, men, women, children, students, grandparents, everyone in between, all y'all, as we say here in the South. And it seems like a simple answer. It seems so simple, but it's not. It's not, even though it applies to everyone. And it's rooted in our enemies' hatred of us. What they hate the most about us is our strongest weapon. And once I discovered it, it's like a light went on in my head, because trust me, I too was feeling pretty down about the world, about being a Jew living now in the world. But when I figured out the key, I unlocked a power I didn't even realize I had, even though I had it all along, and you do too. You have to ask, what is it that all anti-Semites hate about Jews, all of them, from the benign-sounding Jews control the media like those morons, to the ones who shout from the river to the sea and go back to Europe in the same breath with absolutely no self-awareness? What do they all hate about us? They just hate that we are, that we breathe, that we live. They hate that we Jews exist, that we have the audacity to live in their midst, our mere breathing the same air. They can't stand that. So how can we all fight back on a fundamental level? How do we cut our haters to the quick? You just have to exist. How can you tick off an anti-Semite? Just live. Man, they hate that. They hate that. That you have the audacity to get up in the morning, make your coffee, and drive your kids to school. The nerve. They hate that you live your life. They hate that you live. So live. By living, you are making an anti-Semite mad. So that means our existence is resistance against those who hate us for being Jewish. We cannot fix the anti-Semites' disease. It's not our job, and I'm not convinced it's possible most of the time. But what we can do is refuse to go away, refuse to hide, refuse to be quiet, refuse to be less than. Living your life, just being alive is the biggest to someone who doesn't think you deserve to. When I see the herds and the hordes, the mindless ones, protesting a shul or blocking a Jewish college student walking to their class or flooding the comments of a Jewish person online, and I dare for one moment to feel cowed in myself. I just imagine myself saying to them, The words of the great Rick Sanchez, every breath I take without your permission builds my self-esteem. But why stop there? Okay, so the haters hate that we exist, that's cool. And we can get under their skin just by breathing, excellent. I'll see you and I'll raise you. Because just imagine, it's so delicious. Imagine that you didn't just live, but you dared to live joyously. That you experienced success and happiness. Because if we don't deserve to live, then we definitely don't deserve to be happy. So I want you to be so happy. I want you to be so happy. Because if your mere existence is resistance, then your joy is positively revolutionary. Every success you have, no matter how small, is thumbing your nose at the haters because you're daring to say to the anti-Semitic ones, I know you hate me, and I not only refuse to go away, but while I'm here, I'm going to be so happy. Trust me, nothing ticks them off more. And this is not some crackpot theory. The rabbi has lost her mind up there. There's a video very recently of Noah Argamani, one of the hostages who was freed in a very daring rescue by the IDF in Gaza. It was a miracle that she was rescued and rescued alive. And after she was rescued, she spent some time with her mother, who soon passed away. She petitioned world governments for the release of her fellow hostages. She made videos imploring the world to not forget the over 100 who are still held hostage in Gaza. And after months of what she went through and months of all that, after she came home, she had a party with her father. Her father, who campaigned the world tirelessly, fighting for his daughter. And they had a party. And the girl who was abducted from a music festival, where hundreds were killed or taken hostage, who endured the unspeakable, that girl danced again. She danced with her father, with others who survived. You don't have to be Jewish to know that that was a beautiful thing to see. And you know that Jewish joy is a terrible crime to the Jew haters, because immediately the anti-Semites of the internet, of the world, they pounced. That video, the comments, I'm not going to say on a bima, the cleanest ones were things like deranged and sick, and this is filth, dirt, and wickedness. And my favorite was this one. She had 8 months to reflect on life, and this is what she chooses to do? And it's like, you don't get it, do you? When we said, we will dance again, we meant it. We will find joy and happiness and life again. When we say, Am Yisrael Chai, the people Israel live, we mean it. So take your joys wherever you can, large or small. Do what brings you joy. Revel in your successes. You don't have to win a Nobel, though statistically you are more likely. Any success you have, whether great or small, be proud of it. Be joyous, be unabashedly happy. Feel no guilt about that. Jewish joy is our defense against those who would prefer we not live at all. And in truth, I think there's something in our souls that cries out for joy. Joy is what keeps our souls intact in a world that can be so ugly sometimes. We seek joy, we crave it, we need it because it sustains us. The joy of being with friends and family, of celebrating Jewish holidays, joy at life cycle events, at brises and weddings and b'nai mitzvah, the times that bring us together, eating and drinking and smiling and laughing. It's a reminder that we are alive and more, no matter how many generations may rise up to try to stop us. Because the ugly truth of it is that they do try far too often to cut us down, spiritually and physically. And far, far too often they succeed. And that is why it is so imperative for you to remember when the bad news rolls in, each time you must remember that they may take our lives, but they will never take our souls. Joy is the essence of the Jewish soul, and it can never be destroyed. Joy is what gets us through the difficult times. Joy is how we have sustained ourselves through thousands of years, too many of them difficult. That's how we'll get through this too, and whatever comes next. May you be sealed for a year of so much happiness, so much success, so much time with those you love and who love you. May you be sealed for a life with so many moments, great and small, sure to tick off the anti-Semites out there. Gemar Chatima Tova.